Good evening, Chair Davis, members of the board, Jenny Richmond, Planning and Development Administrator, and as been mentioned, here to talk with you about our construction overview for 2019. Our last construction project update was at the 2018 July board meeting. We've been very busy since then. Rebecca provided another handout for you, and it gives a quick summary of 3 categories of projects that we have either completed construction since the last time that we talked about this, or are under construction currently or expected to start in 2019. As you can see, there's quite a few in each category, and the map here is we'll go through these here real quick here. There we go. The maps and this presentation don't account for the work in our division that is helping us to prepare for the next phase of construction, or the grants that we write, the coordination of work on our properties such as public art installations, and the many other activities and duties that are part of our role in the department. You can see from the completed list here the diversity of the project type, scale, and location that we have completed in the last year, since July last year. Some include help from other departments and agencies, and some are entirely done with Parks Department staff and crews pitching in to make the most of resources and do the most good possible for all areas of the city. It's incredibly rewarding to now go out to these locations and see people enjoying improvements like the fully reinvigorated Bell Turner Park that was just dedicated late last week, and knowing what work like the resurfacing at McHenry Park Spray Ground are allowing our operations to run more smoothly. This next slide shows the 23 major projects that are currently under construction, which is also a very diverse list. And then this final map are projects that we expect to start construction in 2019 but haven't quite gotten underway yet. So we'll jump in to a survey of key projects that are either in the midst of construction or that have just wrapped up in the last month or so. And please feel free at any point to jump in with questions, because there are quite a few projects through the list, so I'm happy to be interrupted at any point. The first project here that we'd like to show you is taking place at Berlin Sports Complex, home to Berlin Pool. As part of engineering's combined sewer separation project, they were in need of a space for excess stormwater storage when the pump station at 2nd Avenue, kind of at the southeast corner of the site there, that little building, when it reaches capacity. So when this was brought to us a couple years ago, as you can imagine, we were a little hesitant because the park system is so short on open, flat recreation and athletic surfaces. So we thought after some collaboration, we could possibly make it a win-win, and landed on this solution. So this is north is over to the right. So it's a little bit different orientation than the aerial photo that was just up. But what we landed on was excavating soil for the new detention basins would be placed on the athletic fields to give them a much better surface. And if you had ever played any sports over at Berlin before, you know that the fields could use a little bit of work. So we do feel like this was a big win-win for us. It also creates a little bit of buffer from busy 2nd Avenue, and will give the site a little bit more character once all the native plants and trees grow up a bit. And here you can kind of see the project underway. Again, it being so close to the river high water table, construction has paused for a bit. The contractor needs to remob closer to fall when we get to the point where we can seed and plant the trees. But if you go by it right now, this is about what you'll see. You'll be able to tell that the basin is in place and the sports fields can see are crowned, and will drain better and have a much better soil surface to them. So the next project to share with you this evening is our CETA Skills course. So Central Iowa Trails Association, or CETA, is a great partner of the Parks Department. They've collaborated with us to install a number of mountain bike focused improvements at Ewing Park, and their latest endeavor is a skills course. The project is funded by a grant from REI, and work is anticipated to begin this fall. hopefully also complete this fall. Once they start rolling, that we'll be able to get that wrapped up. The Columbus Park shelter renovation is a signature project this year, and the fourth of our 1930s WPA era open air shelters that are converted to an enclosed shelter to serve today's growing need for quality venue space at a very affordable rate. So these shelters are rented almost continuously through every weekend of the year, and a lot of times during the week as well. The capacity of this one will be just over 60, so it makes it our second largest one next to Ding Darling Shelter. So we worked with consultant Substance Architecture to envision the potential of the new shelter, taking advantage of both the historic features and adding new components to reach the project goals. Here you can see construction underway and the care taken by the contractors and staff to respect this special place. There were a lot of messages that people left on the walls. This used to be a place for changing for the wading pool that was adjacent to the shelter back historically. We even found some baskets that kiddos would store towels and toys in, and the baskets are being repurposed right now and will be added as a decor for the shelter. So the history of the building is incredibly important to the neighborhood surrounding Columbus Park. They fought to save the shelter and were there to celebrate its rededication just 2 weeks ago on July 8th. We have just a few minor punch list items to complete, and then it will be a wrap. The James W. County Sports Park, both baseball and soccer parks, have always been hard to navigate to for first-time visitors. The project consists of 5 components placed on Southeast 14th, along Hartford Avenue, and also at the soccer park. They will be a wonderful, much-needed wayfinding system, provide the landmark parks with equally grand entrance features, and also provide proper recognition to the soccer park's major donor, Mid-American Energy. Here you can see renderings of the 2 most significant components, the archway, the full archway that goes over Hartford, and also the more grand signage that will be at the soccer park. And that component of the project is complete now. So the photo in the bottom right is actually from today. So everything is up and functional and looks fantastic. The other images are of the archway signs. The bases are incredibly complex. There's so much rebar that goes into these. The formwork is really intricate. The metal components were fabricated in Council Bluffs and are arriving on flatbeds. So it's, though just for signs, it's a pretty intense project.
What's the budget of that county project?
90% funded by private funds and 10% city funds. The city funds were basically the staffing costs from engineering and parks. So it was around just around $700,000.
Mid-American.
Mid-American paid for the sign to.
Yeah. And a little bit of consultant fees in that too for that city cost. Yeah. Yep. So we expect it to wrap up by early September and encourage you all to look for a dedication invitation after Labor Day. The west side of City Hall's grounds on the riverside was damaged by a high water event that devastated the existing Pioneer Longlook Garden. Because of ongoing downtown bridge construction, the timing has not been right until this fall to begin the restoration of the space. We expect to begin work on the hardscape this fall with plantings installed in the spring of 2020. And this project, although relatively designed from the existing composition, we're going to switch out a couple of plants that weren't performing quite as well as the original designers had hoped, and in consultation with our parks division and others, we're going to get some stuff in there that'll be successful over the long run. Efforts to install a landmark overlook at McCray Park began in earnest in roughly 2016, with EMC as the project's generously donor and Simonson Associates heading the consultant team. Here you can see the vision in a rendering that helped to guide the project through the design phases. And here it comes to life, very similar to the preliminary ideas. And then the most recent projects or photos show that the project substantially complete, but waiting the completion of phase 2 of the McCrae Park Road before it's dedicated and open to the public. Here you can see the viewfinder right in the middle of the photo there. So if you look through that, you can get an even better view of the downtown skyline and specific buildings. And speaking of McCrae Park Road Phase 2, the map here shows the division of the phases that we're restoring the Park Road in. So phase 1 was completed with the shelter renovation last year. Phase 2 in yellow is what we're working on right now. And phase 3, we're waiting on that until the dredging of the pond is complete. And I'll show you a couple pictures of the pond a little bit later on. But phase 2, we feel like is especially exciting. During the design process, we explored a couple of different sections on how we might divide traffic, because there's so many bicyclists that use this for training and people who walk through the park as well. And we wanted to encourage that and, you know, safety first. So we looked at dividing up auto traffic with pedestrian and bike traffic, and can see through these construction photos how that progresses. So that top photo over on the left shows just the curb being installed and the sub base, and then the first lifts of asphalt going in, and then the center curb that will divide the traffic types. So we're excited to see how this functions, and if all goes well, we'll likely carry it out in phase 3 as well. So this year we were lucky enough to open 2 spray grounds and 2 park restrooms. Tower Park's design inspiration came from the historic and architecturally significant water tower next to the park. Here you can see the design and construction progression of both the spray ground and the 2-sided restroom building. That's in keeping with the system-wide restroom plan that we completed last year. The features at Tower Park were dedicated on June 13th with much support from the neighborhood, and a good time was had by all, especially the mayor, who may have gotten sprayed a little bit by one of the water cannons. So we all had a great time. Nice hot day for it. So.
What happened at the spray park in Waukee that they had to close it down? Slipping?
Right. My understanding is that the surface was a bit slippery, and so they wanted to make sure that they got that taken care of before reopening it to
standardized surface for all spray parks?
There's a couple of different choices that people can go down. Generally right now we drift more towards just concrete with the right broom finish, and that seems to be doing the best job for us right now. There still is maintenance that Ron's staff has to do on a regular basis for that too. With all the sunscreen, and if there's any shady spots, sometimes we can get some areas that need to be power washed off. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I'm sure they'll land on the right spot.
They're putting a rubberized surface over it or something.
Oh yeah, I don't know the details.
I read that, and I had talked to their staff. They asked for our opinions because we have 10 of these now. And we can tell you that, we've learned some lessons as well. We didn't have what the problem they had by any means. We have one rubber surface, the one up at McHenry. And once you build a rubber surface one, you're stuck with that design because it's got a lip of concrete that everything's built into the rubber. The rubber is going to have to be replaced. The thing that we learned from rubber is that it's not slippery, it's a little bit softer, but it does grow algae because it's a darker color. So when the water goes off and it's still wet and the sun sets, it grows an algae. Like your irrigation might on your yard if it sets in the wrong time of year. But we've been very fortunate that our designs have all been really well thought out, and we don't have a problem like Waukee's had.
Well, didn't they have like 2 or 3 serious accidents within the first week?
It sounded like they had a lot of folks that were falling because of the slickness of the surfacing.
Yeah. Yep. Good question. So the second of the 2, Sheridan Park's design inspiration is in keeping with the Sheridan Garden Neighborhood Association's theme. The base is a green leaf with a garden-inspired above-ground spray ground features. Here you can see the construction progression of both the spray ground and the single-sided restroom. That's also in keeping with the system-wide restroom plan we completed last year. The features at Sheridan were dedicated on June 19th with a great turnout from the Neighborhood Association and many other supporters. The original Reno Memorial Dog Park location was heavily affected by flooding roughly a year ago. Following that event, we began to explore relocating the dog park to an available property just a couple blocks west on Hubble Avenue. After extensive public and user group input, the ideas began to come together. The rendering you see here depicts the park improvements that are currently in permitting phase. We hope to receive word from the Iowa DNR shortly on their determination and move forward with the project. Bringing Riverview Park back to life with a new twist has been a labor of love since at least 2014. Here you can see the concept for a grand stage and venue inspired by the site's amusement park history. Fast forward to 2018, 2019, construction has been bid out in 3 phases, and even with 3 different contractors on site, this project is progressing very well, and we're very thankful for that. It's extremely exciting to see both the full site and the stage come to life so quickly after so many years of work with the Parks Area Foundation and other partners. We are currently on schedule to complete construction in early summer 2020. Fairmont Park's renovation was completed about 2 years ago, and it has been loved to the point of needing a little reinforcement in the area of the hillside slide. We had a similar approach included as a possible add alternate during the original construction project, but we're just shy of funding it. The silver lining is an even more refined approach with the advantage of truly understanding how the grades and stormwater function. These renovations should be complete before the end of fall this year, weather permitting. We are excited to see how the larger area at the bottom of the slide and the added play value are received by the neighborhood and all who visit this park.
So what you're looking at there, just as in case you don't see what we always see, is the kids, although the stairwell exists today, the kids would run right back up the left side and it just can't grow grass and become slippery, and then the mud would run down to the bottom of the slide. So the original design had this, but we couldn't afford the AstroTurf, if you will. That's what's field turf. So now we've made them a field turf run up the other side that will be more maintainable for us and sustainable too. So that will be a great solution, I believe.
Yeah, and the limestone steps that are there right now, those will stay in place. So I see every time I go out there, I see people, doing stairs and using them for exercise. So that feature will definitely stay in. So a couple of different ways to get up and down. So shifting gears a little bit here, we actually shifted some priorities in funding, and we're able to complete the second and third and hopefully final phase of Glendale Cemetery Road renovations, at least for now. You can see from the photos of existing conditions that this will be a significant upgrade to the cemetery. We expect work to go quickly once the contractor is able to mobilize and be completed by late fall 2019. Each year, we plan for a phase of approximately 10 park entry signs to be installed at various sites across the city. Phase 6 is well underway and should wrap up within about a month. We have our approach mapped out through Phase 9, which should complete this multi-year project. So I really like this project. I think it helps unify all of our parks. People are going to different sites all around town. They immediately know if it's a Des Moines park or not. And I think they're just tastefully designed and timeless. I don't think they'll ever go out of fashion. So I'm always happy to see these going up.
I look around the table. I look at the only board member that was probably around when we did this, which was Lloyd. We actually hired a consultant to design these signs. They're not inexpensive, but they're also meant to last the test of time.
Yeah.
I've seen what cars do to them, and it stops the car actually. But
Yep.
This is really nice. We're excited to finally be there to have this close to the end. And so, hats off to Lloyd for having a great vision at the beginning, many years ago, to get us this far.
Hi, Colin. I just, along with these signages, what's evolved is the signage that goes with the bike trails and stuff, and I think it was really useful. And I just think they really help interconnectivity of the parks, of the various parks, and with the city in general.
I agree. A well-maintained sign system that's well-designed really sets the tone for a park system. If you have great signage that looks professional, it just starts the approach and the use and the people's not misuse, the respectfulness of the park. So it's been a good investment. I'd say some things are expensive, but they're worth that investment.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Yep. Speaking of a good investment. So,
Segue.
as a quick introduction to this project, we thought it would be most powerful to show you the existing conditions of Pioneer Columbus Community Recreation Center's exterior. Flash forward to current state, the exterior painting was the first project we undertook in 2019 at this property. It was truly a game changer for this site. Our next project will include an updated landscape that should begin installation this fall and may take through early spring 2020 to wrap up.
Before you move on this one, I think that the planning team has a great vision here is those white spaces that are square or larger, like rectangular. At some point, we would like to entertain the idea of some public art to go on those. So maybe we'd come in and paint those. The previous picture does not look like a recreation center when you come to the neighborhood. It looked like some kind of sterile government building where maybe you did something other than recreate at. So the neighborhood's been really excited about this, and now people understand, yes, I have really arrived at the community recreation center. So stay tuned for maybe some public art down the road.
So you may have visited Sargent Park for its well-known natural playscape, spray ground, or to see the wetland resource go through all of its spectacular seasonal changes. Most people did not visit because of 4 Mile Creek, but we think that might change now that the Creek Bank Restoration Project has opened up views and stabilized the edges. The project is substantially complete after 2 major repairs were needed following the last 2 flood events and should be finalized within the month. Every year we have funding allocated for renovating 1 existing tennis court surface. Because of the contractor's timing, we're able to group Waveland with fiscal year 19 funding and Sayers with fiscal year 20 funding to save costs on bidding and contractor mobilization, which then allowed us to include new pickleball lines on Birdland courts. The contractor's schedule was thrown off by wet weather, but we do expect the project to still finish before the end of this fall. That's funny, these tennis court resurfacing contractors travel around a region, and if they get hung up in one spot, then their travel schedule is completely thrown off. And it has been so challenging for us because of all the programming that takes place there and just general people wanting to play. And so we're hoping that this they actually mobilize this week. So. The Trestle to Trestle Trail has been impacted by 2 separate projects during this construction season. The Parks project to stabilize the bank from shifting on the layer of shale that the site sits on is complete. The WRA is trying to wrap up their sewer project and then repair the remaining damage that was incurred by this work. Once that's wrapped up, we'll be open for trail use as usual, and that will be a big relief. George Whitmer Park in the East Village is scheduled for a major upgrade in September thanks to a generous donation from Wells Fargo to the Friends of Des Moines Parks. Here you can see existing conditions of this about half-acre site. These renderings depict the ambitious plan to fully redesign the park to be a more welcoming gateway into the East Village and fun to use by all ages. Construction is underway with the contractor's work set to be complete prior to the September volunteer build day. The work at Ashby Park would not have been undertaken had it not been for a generous bequeath from the estate of Gordon Greger. The only instructions provided were that the funding should go towards gardens in Ashby Park. Overall, we are trying to get away from high-maintenance annual gardens, but Ashby Park is home to a wooded area that showed potential for a feature completely new to our system, a woodland garden, with a soft surface trail system allowing people to access spaces within the park that have not been traversed in memory. Work has been underway clearing out invasive and non-native species to make way for a bit of sun to bring back life to the woodland flowers that have hung on for years of subprime conditions. Already, with just a couple of seasons of change, existing natives are coming out stronger than expected. Our greenhouse is helping to propagate additional woodland flower species to be added, and trail construction will continue throughout the summer. Very coincidentally, Meredith Corporation, through Rebuilding Together, is also interested in Ashby Park for an October build day. We visited the park with them last week, and the opportunity to have Meredith volunteers helping to plant the woodland flowers tipped the scales in favor of going forward with the project. That may also include playground equipment, new site furnishings, trees, and potentially an artist-designed backboard mural at the tennis court. You may recall last year that we showed you Phase 1 improvements at Bell Turner Park, and we have been able to nearly complete the finishing touches with the Phase 2 improvements. This tucked away neighborhood park, almost the furthest north in our system, is a gem. We hope you can all visit soon. We dedicated the fully renovated park last Thursday, July 18th, to a full house of neighbors and supporters. The dedication was followed by our weekly Free Flicks event later that evening. The much anticipated Phase 2 of the Des Moines River Trail, now named the Carl Voss Trail, is officially under construction. Tree clearing is complete, and the general contractor is beginning to mobilize with the intent of being 80% complete before this winter and wrapping up in the spring of 2020. This 2.5-mile segment was supported by $1.65 million of grant funding that will traverse some of the most beautiful terrain in our system. That was a record for any one project like this in grant funding, and we hope to do the same for our next section. Flooding has taken a true toll on our system for almost a continuous year. The Gailey-Wilson Trail has been impacted during every high water event, but construction is underway to fix the damage as we speak. Harmon Park is another site impacted by flooding and will be re-repaired by the same contractor currently working on Gailey-Wilson. We are coordinating with FEMA to review sites that see repeated impact to determine if mitigation funding might be available to help with some of the more intensive repairs or redesign to lessen the ongoing flooding impacts. 4 major construction projects are converging on Grays Lake Park at once in 2019, and with timelines exacerbated by flood impacts, we are ready to be moving on from at least 2 of the 4. The first on the list is the Raccoon River Stabilization Project, which you can see from this existing conditions photo could not have come at a better time. In essence, the work shored up the riverside of the berm that separates the river from the park, and as a result, realigned the elevation of the existing trail. I know George is going to tease me again, but the devil is truly in the details. And notice the lovely colored buff rock rather than the bright white, the tedious live staking of willows to revegetate the bank in strategic areas, and the refinished light poles. A huge silver lining of this work is the excess soil cut from this site to complete the project was able to be used at the Bancroft Bowl by McCray Park, which we'll see in just a minute. Related to the trail rebuild that was part of the Riverbank project, 3 additional sections of the trail encircling Grays Lake were also renovated in 2019. You can see that the condition really needed attention with a variety of issues exhibited. I'm happy to report that only backfilling the edges of the paving remains for the project to be complete, even with the flood repairs. We expect this work to be done within about a month. The Gray Station Bridge is one of 2 projects impacting the park brought to us by others. The bridge will connect the Hubble Gray Station development with the park across the Raccoon River, and is part of the development agreement between the city and Hubble. Construction has been going well, progressing as anticipated, and last week was especially exciting with the installation of the prefabricated bridge sections. You can see here the crane on the barge. That seems like it would be an exciting day at work. Completion is anticipated by year end. The Ruan Connector below Fleur Drive linking Waterworks Park to Grays Lake was initiated by the Waterworks Foundation, and its construction is inching forward concurrent with the progress of Fleur Drive. Here you see the planned facade, and here you see how it intersects with the existing trail on the Grays Lake side. Completion is currently expected mid-spring of 2020.
Well, wait.
Oh, yep.
Did you say mid-spring of 2020?
That's the report from the engineering project manager for the connector, the Ruan Connector.
Okay.
I just want to pause too and tell you that just those 3 projects alone could take up our whole planning department. That's all they could do. As you might have guessed, there's little room for any air to do anything at Grays Lake, to manage donor expectations, user expectations, the politicians' expectations, and our own expectations was an amazing lift that took a lot of coordination and a lot of people working together. And I know that everybody's been patient, especially our board. This is why Grays Lake has had such limited hours this year. We could have done these one by one, which would have been a mistake because you would have had 3 years of major disruption. So to do 1 year of major disruption was probably the best outcome we were going to get. But I want to thank you as a board for your patience and helping us tell that story. And I definitely want to tell the planning team and Ron's team, who had to manage people that didn't want to follow the rules during construction, as well as setting up all the rules we put in place to manage this. They did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Not over yet.
Not over yet,
Yes,
I
we'll
know.
Get there.
Yep.
But you think about it, there's 3, 6, we're approaching $7.5 million of work at Grays Lake as we speak. Our annual construction budget average has been closer to $4.5 million for the entire park system. And what you've seen in front of all these projects right now, start doing the math in your head, you can tell you we've had a record year, which is a good problem to have, but our staff is still the same level of staff.
So most of our ponds and many of our other areas within parks are actually part of the city's overall stormwater management system by default. McRae Pond is no different, and the stormwater that flows in brings sediment with it. Over time, the pond filled in to the point that if someone from 80 years ago would see it, they wouldn't even recognize it. So this dredging project will restore the pond back to its useful, beautiful past identity and even improve it. You'll see here that about 30% construction progress even shows a lot of promise. And here at about 75% complete, along with special features such as fish habitat structures and the flow control structure, we anticipate the project wrapping up by late fall and many happy neighbors.
And one of the things about what you're seeing in those lower 2 pictures is a sustainability feature that will allow us to manage better than we've ever managed before. Ideally, and it should always work like we design these things, that will catch the silt, it'll spin out and drop there where we'll be able to get it before it enters the pond. So depending on what type of rainfall we have every year, what's coming down the creek, it might take 1 or 2 times a year or maybe 1 or 2 times every other year to clean that back out. But that will stop it and help that pond's dredging life last a lot longer for future taxpayers.
Yeah, it's a technical name is a 4-bay, and over at Whitmer Pond, they've got one over there as well. So yeah, it's a much needed and will save a ton of funding over time.
When do you think fishing will be available at that pond?
So I would say that if it does wrap up as we expect late fall, I would say, boy, it has to be restocked. And we've been working collaboratively very closely with the DNR for all of that. They've helped us even choose some of the fish habitat structures. I would say, gosh, depending on what they stock with, it might be almost immediate and it might take a year or so. Yeah, but if you'd like more information, we can find out what they are going to stock with and report back on that.
Please do.
Okay, definitely will. Great question, thank you. So speaking of Whitmer Park, brings us to our grand finale. Appreciate you all mustering through this. Whitmer Park improvements have been our to-do list for a number of years, and we finally had success in receiving a REAP grant to seed the project and kick off Phase 1 in 2017. Phase 1 is concentrated on natural resource restoration, path system, and 2 open air shelters. The Neighborhood Association was excited enough by this that they jumped in early on as a great collaborator. So a second phase is on deck that I can't wait to share with you in the near future, but it will be focused on playground and restroom, for which they are actively fundraising. We've been incredibly lucky with the contractor on board, being organized, competent, and motivated to progress. The quality of the work can be seen in these images, and we also can't wait to see how this project turns out. Well, there you have it. I appreciate your time and interest and support, not just during construction season, but year-round. As Ben mentioned, we've been running in all different directions this year, and I appreciate your focus tonight too. That took about twice as long as what I had hoped. Each one of these could be their own case study, trying to pull out bits and pieces of what might be interesting in about 15 seconds each is difficult, but I really would be happy to take any questions. If you think of anything also after this evening, please feel free to email me or call, and I'd be happy to talk through any of it too. I know that is a lot at one time. So
We have a different contractor at McRae Park than we do at Whitmer.
yes, so McRae Park right now, there are three different contractors. The one that is almost complete with the overlook is actually the same contractor that is at Whitmer. So that was great. Kester is their name. They are doing a fantastic job. We have a different contractor on the road. That's a different story. And then the dredging contractor actually is doing a very good job as well. They were moving really quickly, and then because of the high water, had to move on to a different project, and now they are remobilized over at McRae and trying to wrap that up.
Who's the road contractor at McRae?
That's TK Concrete.
I think we're just overwhelmed with all that you accomplish. It's remarkable.
Well, thank you for saying that, and a lot of credit goes to a lot of other people as well. I mean, we call on Ron's staff especially for a lot of help, daily. Yeah. And engineering, public works, the credit goes to a lot of folks, but we all enjoy our job, and it's a labor of love and lifetime client, and we're excited to see the progress. And appreciate your support. Actually, our new park planner started Monday last week, Derek Hansen, and he's already made a huge impact. So we appreciate that so much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
I'd like to personally thank you, Jenny, and all of your team for all the great work that you've done with us on the Whitmer project. So,
thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, that's a great one too. There's so many good ones, but it's been super fun.
We're gonna have to buy some new scissors because they're getting dull from all the dedications
Yeah.
we're doing. I want you guys to know, you see that come through. So.
Are you sure you didn't leave one out somewhere?
Probably did.
Well, those are just the major ones.
They were tired.
You did a great job, and the board is very appreciative of Ben and you and the work you guys do and his staff. Thank you very much.
I just want to reiterate one more time that Jenny does a great job of leading these things, and she's our quarterback, and we wouldn't do it without her. But Ron and Matt and their teams are along the whole way because we like to design things that we can maintain. So they do a good job of communicating. We don't just build something and say, here you go, Ron, it's your problem. Most of the time, we don't get to Ron, I should say. But so I want to thank all of our team, because there's a lot of thought that goes behind the scenes on these things. And it would be remiss if we didn't thank legal with some of the agreements we have with our donors, and engineering behind the scenes doing all these things. And if he's watching, the city manager for giving the budget to do these things, and the council. So a lot of people involved.
A big team.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation, and
Thank
you
you.
did pick out snippets of interest on each one, and I appreciate that, and so does this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And next year, if you just want top 10, I'm happy to take that feedback too. So.
Any questions? Any other questions? Thank you very, very much.
But truly do follow up if you think of anything. Have a good night.